Welcome back to the shop. This is the 2014 Chevy Cruze. We've had it on the channel before. It's been in here a few times. This time we're getting turbo efficiency codes and also problems with our O2 sensors and low boost. So we're thinking we've got an issue. This turbo's been replaced on this car before, and also the catalytic converter has low efficiency, and when we took the turbo off a few months ago, the catalytic converter was completely plugged. And we're sure that it's plugged still. We cleaned it out a little bit, but it didn't really help. And we thinking there's maybe some type of leak, maybe on the exhaust manifold or somewhere where everything fits together. And this was replaced early on by GM, the turbo was, but they didn't replace the catalytic converter. This car has had all kinds of EGR issues because it has an evap system and a boost system, and they don't play well together. This is the big 1.4 turbo, small engine, but it puts out a lot of horsepower, so it runs hot a lot. It has a lot of plastic components on it. We replaced a lot of the plastic because it gets brittle and breaks. These things have a hard time keeping their juices in because boost will always find its way into the engine and push the seals out and gaskets. It blows the evap system. Poorly designed. It's an Opel design. I think they're made in China. But these can be great cars. They're beautiful cars. I love the way they look. Everybody likes them. But we've just been having trouble with this power plant. We're going to try to fix it. Here's what we got in store. This is my grandson Tyler's car. He went to the mothership to get his parts. He's went all out. This is a GM turbo direct replacement for this car. Brand new. And of course it's a Garrett, and it comes with a few of the hoses and things on it. We got to transfer a couple of parts, but it's already been preset from the factory on the wastegate. And we're going to place the catalytic converter too, because we know that the one that is on it is plugged, GM part, and plus the two oxygen sensors upstream and downstream. We're going to replace those, the gaskets, and try to conquer this turbo problem once and for all. Hopefully when we get the turbo issues resolved, we can probably get another 100 or so thousand miles out of this car. I mean, it's an awesome car. They make really nice cars. It's just keeping it on the road. So we're going to get into this. Probably start, I think it's cooled off enough, we can go ahead and start taking the breather system off of it anyway. We've got to get down in there. Right on the bottom, there is a oil charge line on the bottom of this turbo that we've got to try to get off. And hopefully we can get that without, I was thinking we may have taken the air conditioner loose the last time, but we'll see when we get there. I believe we can get it out of there without removing the air conditioner. But we've got, when we get these covers off, we got to get down there and get that oil charge line off, and we'll show you that when we get there. Okay, the car is off the ground. Tyler's got the oil drained out of it. Went ahead and changed the filter while he was thinking about it and tightened the oil pan plug up. Always do that. Whether you're going to put oil back in or not, when you're under the car, always put that plug back in, tighten it up. I've seen too many people drive off, and not for me, but I've seen a lot of dealers that's had apprentices that'll leave that out or leave it loose, and they drive off. And when I was in school, our school and the dealership had to pay for a motor that they blew up in a brand new vehicle where one of our apprentices had changed the oil, and they didn't put the plug back in or didn't tighten it up. So anyway, Tyler's got the cover off on this turbo. And next thing we're going to have to do, he's going to have to get under the car. And the catalytic converter is bolted on. He's already got the covers off down there, way down underneath the car. He's got to unbolt the exhaust from the catalytic converter. And we're going to take this exhaust manifold, turbo, and catalytic converter out in one assembly. We've already disconnected the O2 sensor plug, which is over here around where the oil filter housing is. He's already got the breather out. Look, there's oil all down in there. So we're getting oil in this turbo. We're thinking that it's coming from through the seals inside of the turbo, and it's coming into the intake and going into the combustion cycle of the car and then repeating itself. So you're getting really poor combustion in this car where oil is leaking through the turbo. And we believe that's been a problem for a while because we found oil the last time we had this apart. We're also leaking oil a couple of places around the front. He's got to replace these eventually, these two cam position sensors. The sensors aren't bad, but they're leaking oil through them. They're coming right out of the electrical plugs. So those have to be replaced. We've already replaced the belt, the tensioner, water pump. We replaced a lot of stuff on this car. And I hope we don't have to start the cycle all over again. He's got the turbo charge line that goes over to the evap. He's got it disconnected, not charge line, it's an evap line. So getting real close to start taking these 10mm bolts out that goes into the block. They should be on studs, but most likely the studs will come out with them. So we'll wait and see how that goes. But we really need a lot of oil right there leaking out of that line. This line will have to be removed. And we also got a, well, there's another line somewhere under the bottom we've got to get loose. And there's the intercooler line that has to come loose. So we'll work through this and we'll get back with you and show you where we're at. Okay, Tyler has removed the catalytic converter so he could get to this line, which is the oil return line that goes back to the engine from the turbo. He's taken these two T10 bolts out. So now this line falls away, the oil return line does. We've already taken the oil feed line off the top, and of course we've removed the catalytic converter. Okay. Here's the replacement converter. We noticed there's a difference in size. They're both GM parts. This one's got a heat shield, but it's still a bigger tank. This old one, you got a light shined in here? Last time we took this apart, can you get it right down in there? You can't see it now. So you're just completely empty now. Well, the guts are completely gone out of it. I hope your exhaust ain't stopped up back through there somewhere. If this is gone, it's in the exhaust somewhere.
Unless it pushed itself out.
Oh, no. So that's something we're going to have to look into. We're going to have to try to probe inside that exhaust because this was all dirty before, and now it's completely gone. Shine it up from the bottom. Although there's no guts in it at all. Oh, no. That's no good. That might be why the car has no power, or the exhaust is plugged. Turbo is out of the car. We had to get these coolant lines off. So it has two coolant lines that goes through the turbo, and we're losing coolant. And you see all this orange? That's coolant. Look real closely. Let me get a screwdriver. My finger split, big split. This housing this turbo is busted. Still spins, but it is split. And this orange, I'm sure, is coolant going into the exhaust. No question about it. Tyler's been right all along. We should have checked this when we had it off the last time, when we first started losing coolant. But it's been coming out of this turbo. Got two coolant lines that's going into this housing. It's got to be going into the turbo. And then you got oil that goes through the other side, this side of the turbo. You got oil lines. You got an upper and lower oil line. Oil goes through part of it, coolant goes through part of it. And you can look inside, it's just, the part that's going into the intake is just wrecked with oil. So it's completely, it was oil poured out of it when we turned it over earlier, when we turned the hoses over. So the efficiency's low because we're losing coolant through the turbo. The turbo was completely plugged the last time we took it. I mean, not the turbo, but the catalytic converter. Coolant going into the catalytic converter and oil going into the converter is never a good thing. So this whole unit needs to be replaced. Needed probably the last time we had the head off of it needed to be replaced, but we just didn't dig deep enough into it. this is empty. We finally decided that we rodded this out the last time we had it because it was plugged, and that's where all the pieces went. They're not in the exhaust. We knew, I mean, of course, the catalytic converter was wide open, so that wouldn't hold it, giving us any back pressure. But this catalytic converter, when we took it off the last time, was melted inside. It was all melted and plugged solid, and I'm sure that burnt this turbo up. And we just didn't dig deep enough to see all this coloration and then this cracking. But there it is. We're going to get everything switched over. That other catalytic converter is smaller, but it's the same part number, so it's not going to be a problem. We're going to start transferring these pieces off this one that we need to that one, like these lines. These lines need to be replaced. If you're replacing them, you should order these new coolant lines. They've also got little washers on them that has seals on them you got to be careful of. But we'll get these lines switched over. Look there where it's been losing oil. Been losing oil out that gasket right there. We've got a new gasket for it. So, oh well. We'll be back. Well, things have definitely escalated. We went to the parts house to get a few items. What we have is these coolant lines here, and they come out with these fittings. Of course, that one's got a banjo fitting, but we really needed the gaskets, the banjo gaskets. And this other one, way back, this line blew off, and we replaced it with just a little piece of line, and it's got hard and looks like it's been leaking. Been leaking around this fitting. So we went and got a Dorman. This is the part number. And this is a turbo coolant and oil line kit. Turbocharger line replacement kit. And we never found it. We had to go to a different county, a couple counties over actually. And this is the line that had failed on us a while back that we had to replace. It looks like it doesn't have the same kind of end. And then you got this line here that goes on the top of the turbo. This is a oil pressure line for the oil that goes into the turbo. This is a coolant line that goes into the block, and it just pushes in to these fittings here. You got a couple of these fittings that replace the ones that were taken out here. They just thread in. They're one-piece fittings, and when you push that line in, it locks in. We've got a couple. They've already got the banjo washers on them. Don't know what was in here. Something was in it. And then this is the bottom one. This is the drain that goes back to the block that comes off of the oil. So we've got all the lines to replace it. It is warranted. Still don't know what was in here. Okay, the fittings were in there. So there they are. So we should have everything we need. There's another one of those fittings and the banjo fitting. So we got 3 of these, Tyler, for some reason. 3 of these. There's one that come with this line. It's got it with it already. Then you got 2 more.
Might be extra.
I don't know. There's another banjo fitting with another. This presses in with just O-rings and has a locking nut that goes over it. Here's another line that takes those push-in fittings. So we should have everything we need. We'll start throwing this stuff together and we'll come back. We're getting deeper in. We've got it on here. Tyler's tore his fingers off trying to get these little bolts on that goes on there. They're really hard to get to back up in here. So we're having to come up with clever combinations to make it work. But also, we had a few, like the Dorman lines were dormant. They didn't line up exactly perfect. So we had a few little problems with them, but we got all those on. But it's been a struggle. I don't recommend this for the timid, I guess. But we're a few hours in and we're getting it put back together. We'll get these little nuts on here and get the exhaust on, and we got to break. There's a process for breaking this catalytic converter in. We'll show that once we get to it. Tyler's got the exhaust on under the car. We think we're pretty wrapped up under there. A few more bolts up here and we're real close to being done. But this other catalytic converter, it was made just slightly different, and we had to do a little tweaking on the other one. I think the other one had been dropped during shipping. This was all bent. We had to get it straightened back out. And then, of course, you saw this earlier. It's got a big crack in it right up here, and it's really opened up. The more it's cooled, the more it's opened up. And those oil lines, drain lines under the bottom, they were challenging to get back on, but we ended up replacing all of those tubes, so we had to make all those tubes line back up. But that's where we're at. We'll press on. We'll talk to you in a few minutes. Things have escalated a little bit. Tyler's taking the coolant lines off of the turbo for the 4th time, I believe. And let me show you what happened here. We use these Dorman push connect coolant lines. They go on the back of the turbo. They go back here on the back of the turbo up against the engine block. And they were push connect. You just push them in. You put these fittings on first and you push the lines in and you put them on the block. This bolts to the block it's in. These are coolant lines. Pressure in return. Well, they've not stopped leaking. We've took them off, cleaned them up, resealed them. Put new seals in them. Changed the line. We put the old line back on, still leaking, so that now the top line is leaking right around these push connect fittings. And I don't know who come up with this crazy design, but this Dorman design apparently doesn't work. We've struggled with it. And you can't take them back out once you push them in. They're pretty much fixed, but they're leaking. So all we can figure is that when they went in, they've sliced the O-rings, or they're just a bad design outright. So he's taking the other line off now. And he's paid over $100 for these lines. And we're probably going to end up going and getting 2 more because these just don't work. Pretty disappointed. We've had the turbo off over and over and over again. Keep putting it back on. It fits good. That's the factory part. And the turbo manifold are factory parts, but we just can't get these Dorman parts to do anything. They're just, we can't find another brand. That's all it seems like anybody's got Dorman. So beware if you're going to use these replacement Dorman coolant lines. Find something else. Go to the dealer and get something. See what they got. Well, everything is finally back on the car after taking it off 4 different times. Tyler's had to make 2 parts runs. We went 2 counties over and got this Dorman turbocharger line replacement kit. Don't worry about the part number because I don't recommend you ever buying this kit. He went back and got this piece right here from a manufacturer, Gates. It looks like basically the same part. But this part, when you snap it in, we've had to take it off a couple of times, but it doesn't lock. And you put a new one on it. Let me put a new one on it. Fiddle around here. A new one goes on there. Doesn't lock. This box had been opened when he picked it up. What we're thinking is somebody has... There was also extra one of these in the box. We think it's been a return and someone has either damaged this part trying to take it back out or damaged these, or both. But it got ripped off, and we ended up putting we put this old line back on there to try to get it to quit leaking, but it wasn't this line, it was the one above it. The oil line worked, and we replaced the 2 oil lines. So far they're holding, but the coolant lines that goes to the turbo did not work. They were just crap. They were junk from Dorman, but he's got a Gates on there, and we repaired one of them. So don't recommend this. If you're going to put these lines on there when you're replacing, we used all GM parts except the coolant lines. If you're going to replace this stuff, replace it all with GM parts. It's warranty parts. It should work. Unless you mess it up yourself, it shouldn't nothing go wrong with it. But I don't recommend using aftermarket parts on these things. They're too finicky and they're too precision made, I guess. I don't know. Maybe they're not precision made enough. I don't know what it is about these Chinese made engines, but these little Opel engines, they're just hard to work on and hard to get sealed up. But I do appreciate you guys hanging out, watching, riding along with us. Nothing we done here is I would recommend, but if you're going to do this job, I mean, you're talking over $1,000 worth of parts here. You've got the exhaust manifold, the turbo. We put a new catalytic converter on it. We put two new oxygen sensors, and if you buy these lines from the mothership, you're probably going to be out another $150. And we paid $117 for the Dorman stuff, and it was horrible. So take our advice, and we should have took everybody else on there, and that's advice too, is use the GM parts. If you're going to do it yourself, invest in all the parts, have everything ready, and you won't be making parts trips. And this stuff's hard to find. Nobody keeps this stuff in stock, so it's hard to get a hold of. But thanks for watching, guys. We do appreciate it. Thanks for hanging out on another journey with this Chevrolet Cruze 2014 1.4 liter turbo, and hope this stretches us on for another 100,000 miles. Thanks for watching. Stay clean, everybody.